Der einseitig von Russland verfügte Waffenstillstand über Ostern ist vorbei. Die Ukraine hatte diesem zwar dem Wort nach zugestimmt, laut russischen Meldungen aber etwa 5000 Mal gebrochen. Wie siehst du die militärische Lage nach dem Waffenstillstand? Welchen Nutzen hat er gebracht für Russland, für die Ukraine? Warum hat die Ukraine zugestimmt, wenn sie ihn ohnehin nicht einhalten wollte?
I mean, only Ukraine can answer the questions. Why do they agree to it? I think everything Ukraine does at this point in time is for political impact. Trying to create perceptions of Russian noncompliance. So Ukraine agreed to something knowing that it would violate, but seeking to turn those violations into Russian violations politically. And they have, their compliant partners in Europe and in the mainstream American media that will parrot anything that comes out of Ukraine. And so, truth doesn't matter. What matters is perception. And Ukraine seeks to twist perception. And that's why they did. The Russians did it because it was Easter. It was the right thing to do. But it wasn't meant to be a long-term ceasefire. It wasn't meant to be a pause to give Ukraine a chance to re-equip and reorganize its defenses. It was an Easter ceasefire so that religious people on both sides of the conflict could reflect on their spirituality or whatever in peaceful environment. The ceasefire is over and the war goes on. And that's Russia's signal. The White House asked them to extend the ceasefire and Russia did not. Why would Russia? Ukraine is in the process of being totally defeated along with their Western enablers. And, Russia has made it clear that there are conditions in which it could bring an end to the fighting, but those conditions haven't been met. Therefore, Russia will accomplish its objectives using military force. It's something Russia has said it will do all along. Russia's prepared, ready to end the fighting. It's Ukraine that hasn't taken this seriously. And Ukraine lives in a fantasy world where they think that things are going to happen that are just literally impossible. They're not getting Crimea back. They're not getting Kherson back, Zaporizhzhia back, Donetsk, Lugansk. There won't be a tribunal where Vladimir Putin is held accountable before an international court. But these are things that Ukraine continues to demand. And unfortunately, there are those in the West who continue to facilitate this fantasy. And for that reason, the fighting will continue until Ukraine no longer exists.
US-Präsident Trump versucht offenbar einen weiteren Anlauf, um einen Friedensschluss zwischen Russland und der Ukraine zu erreichen. Erneut soll der US-Sondergesandte Steve Witkoff nach Moskau reisen. Laut Medienberichten beinhaltet der US-Vorschlag eine Anerkennung der Krim und der 4 Territorien an Russland. Gleichzeitig soll aber das Atomkraftwerk Saporoschje unter US-Kontrolle kommen. Eine NATO-Mitgliedschaft der Ukraine soll ausgeschlossen werden, eine EU-Mitgliedschaft inklusive Stationierung von EU-Truppen aber nicht untersagt werden. Russland hat bereits angedeutet, dass das nicht akzeptabel sei und beruft sich auf den Friedensschluss von Istanbul aus dem Jahr 2022. Welche Aussichten hat der Vermittlungsversuch von Trump? Welche Zugeständnisse muss Russland für einen Friedensvertrag machen?
Russia will make no concessions, so Russia must make no concessions. When you say must, it implies that there's an imperative on Russia's part that they are under some sort of pressure to do something. Let me remind everybody, Russia didn't ask for Donald Trump to intervene and try and bring an end to this war. Russia has said that if Trump can pull this off, Russia would go with it, but it requires Ukraine, the losing party, the party that started this fight. Ukraine will bear the brunt of the consequences of this action. So, what is the United States giving Russia? That which it already owns? Who is the United States to tell Russia, oh, you get to keep Crimea? Russia has Crimea. Russia's like, try and take it from us. You get to keep the 4 territories. We have them. They're ours. Who are you to, lord over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant? The last time I checked, it's on the soil of Zaporizhzhia, which is Russian territory. The United States has no legal claim to this, and Russia has no obligation to, allow the United States to assume jurisdiction over this. This is ridiculous. This is insulting. This is an embarrassment. And we could just go on and on and on. I will make it as clear as possible that I don't believe, the concept of Ukraine joining the European Union. First of all, it's a joke. I mean, as Hungary has pointed out, Europe can't afford it. So, I mean, who's fooling whom? But that would imply that there's a Ukrainian government capable of making decisions independent of, Russia. And let me remind the Ukrainians and their Western allies, this is like saying that the Nazis, after the fall of Berlin, get to dictate things, that the Nazis are still in control, that they're still in power, that they've decided that they get to say, well, we get to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, no, you were defeated. It's called denazification, and you will no longer exist. So the Ukrainian government, as it currently exists, will not be the post-conflict government. And these are realities that the United States needs to accept. We don't get to come in after we started this war. I want to remind people of that. The notion that this is Joe Biden's war is a lie. This is Donald Trump's war. Donald Trump is the guy who, continued the policy of training Ukrainian forces for the sole purpose of being prepared to fight Russians, providing lethal arms to Ukraine, seeking to weaken Russia through the implementation of economic sanctions. He created these conditions. The NATO plan for Ukraine to go to war was written while Donald Trump was president. So the party that started the conflict, as they're being defeated on the battlefield, doesn't get to say, we get to dictate the outcome. All you get to do is sign the surrender documents. Russia's giving the United States a courtesy, allowing them to save face, to turn to the Ukrainians and say it's over, and to make this as gentle as possible for Ukraine and their European enablers. But Russia's under no obligations to concede anything to the United States, nor would it when it touches upon their sovereignty.
Es scheint so, als verfolge die US-Regierung mit ihrer Friedensinitiative eigene ökonomische Ziele. So sieht der angestrebte Deal mit der Ukraine nicht nur die Kontrolle über die seltenen Erden des Landes vor, sondern Washington will auch den Gastransit kontrollieren. Zudem sollen die Atomkraftwerke unter US-Kontrolle kommen. Welche Zukunft der Ukraine schwebt Trump vor? Versucht Trump über die Ukraine auch die Energieversorgung der EU in US-Hand zu bekommen?
Well, first of all, I think the economics of what Trump's trying to do has no bearing on this whatsoever. It'll cost the United States more money than they'll get out of it. I think what this is the concept of security guarantees. This is the United States way of saying that if we take control of critical Ukrainian infrastructure, that serves as a tripwire to prevent any further Russian attacks. I think Russia would go along with that because Russia, this would be done instead of putting European Union troops on the ground. So this would be the United States saying that our heavy investment, our taking possession of critical infrastructure serves as the equivalent of a peacekeeping force because Russia would not be likely to carry out attacks against the United States while it's operating inside Ukraine. Whether Russia can ultimately agree to that or not, I don't know. But the United States won't have any say over anything that belongs to Russia. For instance, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, that is Russian. These are details that I'm sure if the United States showed good faith in other issues that it could be worked out. But, I think the United States would have to understand that whatever economic framework they did, the issue of Ukrainian sovereignty would be decided at the election booth in a mechanism controlled by Russia, meaning that denazification literally disqualifies much of what currently constitutes the Ukrainian government from ever participating in government again, from ever doing anything again. If you're a Nazi, you're not welcome in Ukraine. So, the United States will have to understand that whomever they sign an agreement with today won't be in power once this conflict ends.
Die sogenannte Koalition der Willigen setzt offenbar nach wie vor alles daran, die Ukraine im Krieg zu halten. Deutschland stellt sich mit dem angehenden Bundeskanzler Friedrich Merz an die Spitze der Bewegung. Merz liebäugelt noch immer mit einer Lieferung des Taurus Marschflugkörpers an Kiew. Russland hingegen hat deutlich gemacht, dass der Einsatz von Taurus eine offene Kriegserklärung wäre und ernsthafte Konsequenzen haben würde. Diese Warnungen aus Moskau sind nicht neu. Wie ernstzunehmend sind sie? Hältst du es für realistisch, dass Merz Taurus an die Ukraine geben wird? Und wie würde Russland dann reagieren?
I don't believe that Merz will give the Taurus to Ukraine because Pistorius, who is the current defense minister and who is likely to be the defense minister under whatever coalition that Merz puts together, has said there's reasons why we haven't given Taurus to Ukraine. They're secret, and we'll tell the chancellor to be when the time comes, and he'll find out that we can't give the Taurus. And one of the reasons is that the Taurus cannot be used for significant German military involvement on the ground inside Ukraine. That basically to use the Taurus against critical Russian infrastructure is the equivalent of Germany attacking Russia, and Russia will then retaliate against Germany. And that's been made clear. So unless wants a war with Russia, and believe me, it would be a war that NATO would not extend Article 5 protection for, because this would be Germany acting unilaterally, not in accordance with any NATO doctrine or NATO support. So this is the reality. I don't believe that Taurus missiles will be given to Ukraine because it's a death wish for Germany.
Die Forderungen der Ukraine nehmen kein Ende. So sprach Andrei Melnik, Gesandter der Ukraine bei der UNO und ehemals Botschafter in Berlin, aus, dass Deutschland 1/3 des Bundeswehrmaterials an Kiew übergeben sollte. Er sprach von 45 Eurofighter, Taifun und 30 Tornado-Kampfjets, 100 Kampfpanzer Leopard 2 sowie 115 Schützenpanzer Puma und 130 Schützenpanzer Marder. Offenbar will die Ukraine gerade Druck auf Deutschland ausüben für noch mehr Zugeständnisse. Aber hätten solche Lieferungen einen entscheidenden Effekt auf dem Schlachtfeld? Hat Deutschland überhaupt so viele einsatzbereite Maschinen, wie Melnik suggeriert?
Well, I don't know what the current maintenance status is of this equipment, but this is insulting to Germany, embarrassing to Germany. It makes Germany little more than the slave of Ukraine. So welcome, Germany. You're now slaves of Ukrainian overlords, your masters, who are taxing you. They're taxing you financially because there's also a demand for a certain percentage of the budget to be transferred to Ukraine. And now the Ukrainians are taxing you for the military goods. So good job, Germany. You've become the vassal state of Ukraine. This is the stupidest stupid gets. It's a non-starter. Even the Germans in their, subdued, mode will not submit to this. It's ludicrous. It's an embarrassment. It's humiliating. And it really, frankly speaking, should prompt the Germans to cut all relations with the Ukrainians.
Russland warnte jüngst davor, dass die Koalition der Willigen, insbesondere Großbritannien, beabsichtigt, eine Seeblockade gegen Russland einzuführen. Dazu gehören auch Drohungen der baltischen Staaten, zukünftig russische Schiffe nicht mehr in die Ostsee fahren zu lassen. Bei solchen Plänen denkt man unwillkürlich an Napoleons Kontinentalsperre oder an den Versuch der deutschen Marine, Großbritannien zu blockieren im Ersten und Zweiten Weltkrieg. Wie realistisch sind solche Pläne und hätten sie überhaupt Auswirkungen angesichts der starken russischen Wirtschaftsbeziehungen nach Asien?
Well, first of all, a blockade is an act of war, and if the Baltics and Great Britain want to go to war with Russia, Russia is prepared to use whatever means necessary to ensure that their objectives won't be met. The quickest way for the Baltic nations to lose their navies is to confront the Russian Navy. And the quickest way for the British to accelerate the sinking of the totality of their fleet would be to confront the Russian Navy. Again, this is just stupidity in the extreme. They're picking on a handful of unflagged tankers, but if they seek to accelerate, to increase the pressure on Russia by attacking Russian flagged ships, it's an act of war. A blockade is an act of war. I just want to remind the British and the Baltics that Russia's sort of in a big war right now. That Russia knows what needs to be done, and Russia's not going to hesitate to do what needs to be done. So it's probably best if Keir Starmer continues to focus on making out with his butler, or if the Baltic states, perfect the art of, yapping like chihuahuas. But to flex naval muscles that they don't have is stupid.
Lass uns thematisch in Asien bleiben. Offenbar plant US-Präsident Trump nach der Eskalation des Handelskrieges gegen die Volksrepublik China nun auf Diplomatie zu setzen. Laut Medienberichten soll ein Treffen mit dem chinesischen Präsidenten Xi in Kürze stattfinden. Was erwartest du von so einem Treffen? Will Trump die Wogen wieder glätten? Oder bleibt der Handelskrieg gegen China ein Teil der US-Geopolitik?
Trump's peace through strength approach always requires massive escalation up front and then walking back and trying to smooth the waters out. That appears to be the approach he's taken. To the extent that China, wants to smooth the waters. I think there's a growing recognition in China that the United States is moving towards a major realignment of its relationship with China. We don't want a war, but we want to alter and constrain China's economic dominance. And the mechanism to do that is tariffs, trade war, etc. Trump has already undertaken by what some people would say are extreme measures against China, escalating this issue. From the Chinese perspective, the reason why Trump is seeking a rapprochement is that it's not going the way Trump wanted it to go. Do the Chinese want to make peace now and give the United States a chance to regroup so that the next time they engage in a trade war, they're in a stronger position, or does China want to exploit the fact that it has the upper hand right now? These are decisions. These are risks that you take when you push to increase to escalate the level of economic confrontation. Trump may have overextended the United States here, and China may not want to yield the advantage that it has. So I don't know what these talks are going to be. China is a very pragmatic nation, and obviously, if they can bring an end to this trade war in a way that is to their advantage, they will do so. I don't know what cards the United States brings to the table right now, but I do think that Trump is serious about bringing an end to this stage of economic conflict because it's not going well for the United States.
Der Volksrepublik China ist ein Durchbruch in der Entwicklung von nicht-nuklearen Wasserstoffbomben gelungen. Laut einer Fachpublikation sollen chinesische Forscher eine 2 Kilogramm, 4,4 Pfund schwere Magnesiumhydrid-Bombe gezündet haben, mit konventionellen Sprengstoffen als Katalysator. Dabei soll eine Feuerkugel mit Temperaturen von über 1000 Grad Celsius erzeugt worden sein, die länger als 2 Sekunden anhielt. 15 Mal länger als eine gleichwertige TNT-Explosion. Wie bewertest du diese Testergebnisse? Warum werden sie als so ein großer Durchbruch seitens der Volksrepublik China dargestellt? Und ist es ein Zufall, dass sie gerade jetzt veröffentlicht werden?
I think it's, obviously China's seeking to create perceptions of military capacity. I will say that both Russia, the United States, and probably Iran have been pursuing similar technology. The science is not unknown. Clearly China has demonstrated a capability. What is its military effectiveness? Troops in the open. This would be a devastating weapon against unprotected civilian housing. Devastating weapon. But one of the things about TNT isn't just the reason why it's a short explosion is because of the overpressure that's created, the detonation and the blast effect. What is the blast effect of this weapon? Is this a weapon that purely is burning hydrogen, creating heat, or is this a weapon that can actually level the inner city similar to a nuclear weapon? What I'm trying to get at is that this weapon may look really cool in a photograph and not have as much military viability as is one thing. So, it's cool. Everybody's looking at it going, ooh and ah. But can China project that weapon? How do they deliver that weapon to a target? I just want to remind people that the United States is the only nation in the world that's capable of projecting meaningful military power anywhere in the world at any time. No other nation can match this. And we have to keep that in perspective when we talk about China's muscle flexing.
Kannst du bitte ins Detail gehen? Welche militärischen Vorteile bieten Wasserstoffbomben auf Basis von Magnesiumhydrid? Welche Einsatzmöglichkeiten haben sie auch im Vergleich zu anderen konventionellen Bomben und Atombomben? Verfügen die USA auch über vergleichbare Bomben?
As I said, this is not an unknown technology. It's something that, if we go down to Socorro, New Mexico, I'm fairly certain that the University of New Mexico, which operates on behalf of the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, a weapons development and testing capability, that this is something that they've explored. I'm sure the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency has explored this. This isn't unknown. China didn't invent this weapon. China decided to invest and build this weapon. The military advantages. Again, how is this weapon deployed? How big is this weapon? Can it be deployed efficiently? What is the blast effect? Again, when you look at a weapon, you're looking at, you're putting a weapon on a target based upon that weapon's ability to destroy a target. I'd need to see, because when you speak about a slower burning weapon, that means that you're getting a lot of heat, but maybe not as much blast. Again, I'd have to look at it. They're talking about, hydrogen and maybe replicating some of the temperatures that you get with a nuclear explosion. But what is the blast effect? Weapons are weapons. We've been building devastating weapons. We have thermobaric weapons that have been employed. Russia uses thermobaric weapons on the battlefield, but it doesn't guarantee victory. It just means you kill people in larger numbers. I don't know if this is a game-changing weapon. The fact is, I can guarantee you that it isn't a game-changing weapon. It's just a cool weapon that kills people, and what its overall utility is yet to be determined.
Liebe Zuschauer, wenn euch unsere Beiträge gefallen, teilt sie unbedingt in den sozialen Medien. Abonniert unseren Kanal und drückt auf die Glocke, damit ihr keine Veröffentlichung von Gegenpol verpasst.